What's up, everyone? This is Rick Retreats. You are watching the Pumpkin Patch on HPUSA TV. Make sure to like and subscribe. Comment if you would like, because I love to talk to you guys. Come on, please. I want a conversation. It's more fun when there's a conversation. I do have a guest with me. You can see in the box either this side or this side. However, I'm going to introduce him in 1 second. Shameless plug. I do still have AFI Shut Your Mouth pins. They are in my Etsy page. Please buy them. If not, you're a poser. Next week, the Writhers will be dropping our brand new single. It is called Spend the Night. And again, if you don't listen to it, you're still a poser. But if you do, please let me know how you think of it. I'm really stoked on it. It is probably one of the best recorded things we will be putting out. I'm very excited. With that being said and out of the way, this is my friend Ripley from Six Silver Bullets here in Orange County, California. What's up, dude? How are you doing?
How's it going, Rick? Mr. 2Ks?
It is good. So, for context, I am Rick with 2Ks. We have a friend who is Rick with 1K, so that's my differentiation. So,
yeah, I do love the nickname 2K. It's like it takes me back to the 2000s.
See, it's funny because that's kind of what we do for him. We'll be like 1K Rick, just to make sure we know who we're talking about.
When you say it that way, it sounds like he has a bad camera.
Yeah. Well, so it's funny because he's older than I am, so he technically is the only, he's the first Rick. So.
So you have more resolution.
Yeah.
He was 1K, now you're 2K.
Totally.
There's gonna be a 4K eventually.
So yeah, I don't know, because then you have to get through the 3K, and that might be kind of difficult.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. I don't want to be that person.
I don't either. Well, on that note, so my first question is always sort of a completely a music question. And as I had mentioned before, most of my questions are pretty off the cuff. But I'm going to ask you, what is your favorite 90s cartoon show?
Oh, wow. That's going to be between Tailspin and then obviously Darkwing Duck.
Okay. See, I feel like those are kind of, I wouldn't even, I guess me personally, I grew up on like the more the Nickelodeon Cartoon Network stuff. So going to the Disney stuff is like, oh, I don't remember Tailspin. But I remember Darkwing Duck, but I don't remember Tailspin.
Yeah, I don't even remember. I think like as I was a kid, I think we had cable once for like 3 months. So I soaked up everything from that moment, and then after, oh gosh, what was that show? Like Real Monsters or whatever?
Okay. Yeah. All Real Monsters.
Yeah, I go to school and kids were talking about Rocket Power, and I was like, Rocket what?
That's okay. You didn't miss out. Rocket Power is kind of an odd one. For some reason, those Nickelodeon shows gave me, like, they left me with a bad like feeling all the time because the artwork was so weird on purpose.
There is one episode that is an honorable mention of Angry Beavers where they're in the swamp, and I feel like that's what cursed me to a life of playing psychobilly. It's swamp zombies, Angry Beavers.
Okay. So that may have just crossed out like most of my questions. Like,
oh no!
So what got you to psychobilly? Angry Beavers.
yeah, Angry Beavers. Nickelodeon or Disney Channel Halloween specials.
Love it. I love it. Ripley, will you share a little bit about your band, when you guys started, some of the major influences that you've taken?
Yeah, so gosh, I'm gonna date myself, but back in 08, 09, I moved from like Indio, Coachella, California, moved to LA for college, tried to be a music major, that didn't work out, but started trying to play in bands up here. I had a band before, it was called B-Devil, and we were playing psychobilly, and us and another band, Los Mumblers, in Indio, Coachella, and that was basically it. Just playing those backyard shows with a metal band, ska band, metalcore, crust punk, and then us. But no, I got here, and then around 2011 is when we like finally formed after jamming with a few people.
Okay.
And then around that time, that's when B Be Deadly, Brittany. She came in officially on drums, and then we solidified a few years later. Bassist, I don't know. I always feel like it's the hardest thing in psychobilly. It's like everyone else is looking for drummers, and then always looking for a bass player in a psychobilly band. So yeah, so we solidified a lineup later on and just started playing shows. So it's actually this month is our 10-year anniversary.
Yay! It's like I knew that, and this is why we're doing the interview.
Well, what's even worse than that is, me and B didn't even catch on to that. So,
Yeah.
it was just like at that point it was like the 10th, and then we were like, should we get a cake?
Is it our birthday? So what do we do with this?
Yeah, it's like any COVID birthday. Does it even really count? Are we just gonna get over next year?
Yeah, totally.
COVID anniversary.
So COVID anniversary.
Yeah.
So the entire time that you've been playing music, you in the bands you've been in prior and in this project, you were guitar and vocals, correct?
Yeah, guitar. So sorry, I guess I should have said that. Guitar and vocals, and yeah, primarily 3 pieces. It's just worked out that way. Before we had that app When to Meet, it just seems like getting 3 people into a room is just so difficult. But yeah, in high school, I literally my first band. We were, we're all friends that either lived in like a 2-mile radius of each other, and none of us wanted to sing. We literally had straws. I drew the short straw, which meant that I had to go take choir. So
you lost. You have to take choir.
Yeah. So I had to go take choir, but it easily could have been any of the other members, Nick or Mike, honorable mentions from back in the day, the MySpace days. It could have been them.
Okay. So aside from the Halloween specials of Disney Channel and Nickelodeon shows, what brought you into doing psychobilly?
It's a good question. I have growing up, I guess my father was into country music, but like, Merle Haggard outlaw stuff because he was a long haul trucker. Mm-hmm. And then my mom
say no more. That's all I need to know.
Yeah. He was a long haul trucker, but I mean, he had like an art degree. He just, being a professor wasn't for him. So but he liked country, like that old Bakersfield stuff, and then my mom liked hair metal.
Okay.
So I feel like at a early age that was probably sitting there, and then years later, I don't even know what the first psychobilly song I heard was. I feel like it was like a feeling, and we joke about the Nickelodeon specials, but it would be like a tone in some thing that you watch or something, but probably it's controversial in our genre, but probably was like a Tiger Army song, like something from a friend's older brother playing it and hearing it, through their room or something.
Sure. That I think goes to probably my next question is because you guys don't sound like Tiger Army, at least not to me. You have an interesting sound. To be fair, I'm not extremely well versed in psychobilly. It's probably my less known of the what I would call like the horror rock triplets of death rock, horror punk, and psychobilly, right? But from at least my ear, Tiger Army doesn't really sound as similar, and not in a bad way. You guys are a lot more unique than a lot of the bands that I've heard in the genre. How that being potentially a first instance, how did you get from that to where you are sonically, I guess?
Yeah, well, I think both B and I, we were from small towns, and eventually I settled here in Orange County, but she was primarily from like born and raised in Orange County. Mm-hmm. But I from what I gather, both us both going to schools, that we didn't have like a rockabilly or psychobilly like clique at high school or college, and it was maybe you'd look something up on the internet or something. But for her, I know a lot of her big influence would be what I would call like Chicago punk.
Mhm.
You know, like Flatliners, Menzingers, Alkaline Trio in some stage or something. I don't want to speak for her, but that's
Sure,
that's
sure.
that's a lot of that stuff. And then you know, and then I think somewhere along the lines we both probably saw a goddamn Gallows show or something and started there's a saying, at least we met on this board called the Psychobilly forum. It was the Psychobilly online wrecking forum, so
Mhm.
pork. And she answered a classified of mine of
Yeah.
looking for a just a guy looking for a drummer and a bass player. So I was just help. But at that time, I think there was a saying that was, it's like, where's the beef, where's the Billy.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of bands in the early 2000s that would be called like Metal Billy or
Sure.
Emo Billy or something. There would just be something with an upright bass. And so there's this kind of thing of like, it's gosh, it's one of those things where I feel like it's when you watch those like cooking shows, those
Mhm.
like Chef's Table or something, and like you can deconstruct a grilled cheese or something,
Right.
but and you can make it like an open face or you can make it a vegan grilled cheese, or you could I don't know, you could use like flatbreads and stuff, but you get to a point where it's no longer grilled cheese,
Sure, sure. It's the chefs that are saying this is a grilled cheese soup, and like at that point it's no longer a grilled cheese sandwich at all, or grilled cheese at all, if we're using that metaphor, right? So from what I'm understanding, it's tacking on. I like the concept of emo Billy,
Yeah.
tacking on emo and Billy, right? Like at what point does that stop being psychobilly?
Yeah, and we were just really, I mean, at least at some point we were kind of interested in like, I think like the hillbilly crossover stuff, like,
Mhm.
and there's so much freedom, because I think at some point you could be a very punky sounding band with like a band, and there's a bunch of them out there that are like in Austria that have like a fake, southern accent or something,
Sure.
and then that's where the Billy comes from, or really twangy guitar, or a lap steel or something. So
Okay, I understand now.
so we were just trying to figure out what those things were, and
Mhm.
enough distortion that that you sound modern, but not so much that you sound just like a Treyu with an upright bass or something.
That's an idea.
It is.
Put a pin in that one. That might
Yeah,
happen
yeah.
eventually.
Well, I have a list of band names. Maybe that could be oh gosh, I don't know, like Angry Chainsaw or something.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's Orange County metalcore with a stand-up bass. But see, based on what I'm into right now, if it's a Treyu adjacent, we have to be doing the red eyeliner like all the Orange County metalcore bands. Like that's let's Angry Chainsaw.
Yeah, it's nice. I think nowadays, I don't know. I think, gosh, I mean, it's so nice now, at least with like internet stuff, where it's like people, are calling people out for being gatekeepers or any of those
Mhm.
kind of things. There used to be, I mean, emo Billy almost was like a derogatory term,
Of course, yeah.
So I mean, yeah, just like emo.
Well, emo is unfortunately always been a derogatory term, I think, in like the bigger punk scenes, you know.
But then it's like, yeah, it is crazy, because you'll see some bands where it's just, the members will all dress, they're maybe like male presenting and they're all wearing vinyl dresses or
Mhm.
bondage stuff, or horror makeup, or both of those things. And then at that point, can you really call somebody out for wearing red eyeliner?
Right, right, totally.
You're like, where do you? Okay, well, so for you the line was red eyeliner, but for somebody else the line was, black vinyl, cat suit or
Sure,
something.
totally. So it makes a lot of sense to me, I think, now sonically that part of the, like you said, where's the Billy? For you guys, the Billy is in, like you said, the hillbilly sort of more of the country. I mean, I guess going back to what you're saying, the roots for you is like outlaw country stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to skin this cat for a while, but really trying. I definitely like when I hear bands, and I'm not thinking of any like off the top of my head, but I mean, Goddamn Gals would definitely be one where, you know, a lot of times in psychobilly, the only acoustic instrument really that you're going to hear is maybe the upright bass and the drums, if you consider that, I mean, acoustic instrument. But you know,
Sure.
adding those like folk elements to it, and then that's nice too because you know our the U.S.'s folk, that's a different type of folk than Spain's folk or
Sure.
yeah. So it's just so or anywhere. It's just so you can have so much to play with there. So lately we've been trying to incorporate more, have at least from the guitar side, have the definition, the high end coming from acoustic instruments, and maybe having the bass, for lack of a better term, be kind of the zhuzhy, kind of stoner rocky, I guess,
Sure.
guitar. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So it's adding those layers to kind of make it your own,
Yeah, I guess. And we didn't really realize it until our debut album, or our self-titled album, recorded back in 2017 on Suicide King Records. That one was like, it was one of those things where once we heard it back and it was done, at first we were like, wow, man, this is like really sludgy. The guitars are really sludgy.
Mm-hmm.
But then thinking back, like, oh man, like, is it just something like in the collective unconscious? Like, did the producer just know because I'm from like the desert that he was gonna give me like a desert guitar sound? Because
Right.
it wasn't at least what it sounded like when we went to go in. It was very twangy, and every time we've done at home recordings, we've been real twangy, and then you get in there and it's just like.
Mm. I was going to ask, the first album, I don't know if this was the first recorded thing that you had done, but the first album at least came out in 2017. But you guys started in 2012. Was that time spent playing shows, writing other stuff? Did you record anything prior to the first album?
Yeah, we had done a few EPs, like self-titled stuff. We
Okay.
did a thing at one point. Our bassist for the longest time, Angel Lestat,
Mm-hmm.
he was a guy who was constantly putting stuff on YouTube, like
Okay.
ripping stuff and putting it on there. So we got the ability to kind of like, put up some obscure Russian psychobilly band, and then the next song he uploaded would be one of ours or something, and then we would get some of those views, I guess. And we did about 2 or so EPs, just self-titled. A lot of stuff was just the first stuff we jammed on. Really was my old stuff from B Devil,
Uh-huh.
and changing that, making that our own, and then you know luckily by the time we got the self-titled out, a lot of those songs we had already been playing for so long, we were already in our mind like, okay, well, we're on album 2, but we just got to get this first one out.
Sure. I get how that goes. You keep writing and keep grinding, and you have all of these songs eventually, and you're like, well, shit, I have all this, but I haven't finished the first, project yet.
Yeah, totally. And one of the ones that it is what it is, but we did this one towards the end, and it was really nice. It was called From Blood and Bone, and that didn't make it. We were kind of trying to go for like the 13 tracks, like 13 tracks on the CD or whatever.
Yeah.
Lucky 13 or whatever, and that's one of the ones that didn't make it. But ironically, it was one of the ones that we ended up all kind of writing together.
Mm-hmm.
And there was 3 of us in the band, like, and all 3 of us were singing vocals, and
Okay.
that was definitely something. I had drawn a short straw back whenever, but I definitely liked bands, where they viewed it as more of a collective,
Mm-hmm.
and less like, it's Ripley's, talk show or something.
Sure. That's a good point, or that's an interesting perspective. It's really easy for a lot of musicians, I think, to, I'm the leader of the band, therefore I'm going to do all this, which there's nothing wrong with that. But then it's also another thing to be, hey, this entire project is collaborative. right? How do you, being the singer and I would assume major songwriter, how do you balance that? Like, how much of it is a collective now with you and B, or hey, I came up with a full song? How do you balance that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, in recent years, it really has become, we'll get like, we've really been trying to do I mean, going back to the country thing, even like, even like the mainstream country, which I don't like listen to anymore, but like what is it, like, save a horse, ride a cowboy type,
Sure.
type lines.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's just like those one things where, coming from the punk thing, I think it used to be, used to say a lot, and every chorus had to be a stanza, and every verse had to be two stanzas, and not really thinking about a turn of phrase or something. So sometimes now what will really happen is she might get a turn of phrase, or I might get one, and then one of us might go home and write you know, write a verse, or get most of the way there on something, and then just kind of get stuck, and then one of us will try to be able to come at it from a different view, and that's how we've been doing it a little bit before 2017. But we just had to get those songs out.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
but so mostly it's like that, and at this point, it's definitely nice. I mean, right now we're the core members, and trying to find bass players during the pandemic before that happened, and having touring bass players and stuff, and it's like, that's definitely something that we wanted to keep doing, was the collaboration, and ideally be like, hey, I wrote this song, but I don't think I'm the one who's supposed to sing it. I think you're supposed to sing it.
Okay. Yeah. That's a concept, kind of having that. I think you and I had this conversation where a cool idea is the sort of more art collective sort of experience in music, whether it's a band or artists or videographers or photographers or anything like that. And that's kind of what it reminds me of, this sort of, like you said, group collective experience. And like, hey, I wrote this, but like, it might be better if you sang it. It might be better if I did this, or anything like that.
It's really fun. I mean, we've had some stuff where, her and I have tried to do like, acoustic kind of things, just like side project stuff. And it's fun because, we've been friends since 2011. So sometimes we'll write something in the other person's voice off of a very specific incident that happened to them from there. And it's just like, oh, dang, man, you just like really cut me to the core. Like, what?
Yeah.
That's crazy. But, that kind of thing just happens when people are really close, I guess.
Sure. I think that says a lot. I had this conversation with, I don't know if you know Enzo from Wake the Dead, but I had this conversation with him before. We were talking about the difference between being like, bringing up Tiger Army again, like Nick 13 is Tiger Army, right? The other guy, hired hands, like, yes, they may tour with him all the time, they might help him write the music, but he's Tiger Army. So that's probably very freeing to be like, hey, all I have to do is worry about me doing this and hiring the guys to do that. But at the same time, that's got to be really lonely in what you're talking about. Like, no one else in the band. Again, based on my conversation with Enzo, it sounds like he doesn't hang out with those guys. They're not his buddies. So that's got to be cool, but also shitty at the same time, right? Because what you're talking about sounds awesome. Okay, this person knows me well enough to like write a song from my perspective about something that happened, and it sounds like it actually gets the point across, and you're like, ow,
Yeah.
Someone like Nick 13, while there's probably perks of being the sole proprietor of all the music and stuff, like, doesn't have that experience with that.
Yeah, it is funny. I mean, I didn't mention it. I mean, it wasn't one of those things. I left the desert. I was 18, and Queens of Stone Age is one of those bands that all our teachers like went to school with them.
Sure.
So it was a little bit before my time, but I know that's how they kind of treated it. It was a session, and at one point Dave Grohl was in it because he was just hanging out, and the guy from Screaming Trees, like Mark Lanigan and stuff. And it's funny because like, you know how it is, like you move out of your small town and then you're in your small town and you don't give a shit about that band that was from there because that's all you hear about.
Sure.
And then you leave and you're like, no, I do miss that donut place or like whatever.
Right,
It was
right.
mine. And so it's funny because I think like in a perfect band situation, it would be the burden wouldn't be on one person to do those things. And like you said, it would be. I've been in those bands or those situations where I've been a hired gun, and in some ways it is freeing because then you can just focus on your one instrument and play the best part you can.
Sure.
But that kind of stuff that also happens when you go into recording because I mean, when you go to record, you write something a certain way, and then when you go to record it, the producer might be like, "Oh, I don't know, that snare part is like stepping on the vocals," and you're like, "What?
Yeah.
I've played this. This is how I play it." Or I don't know. In psychobilly, it's like, "Oh, you can't play the kick drum too much because that's where the bass frequency is." So it's the same thing of like you might go in with a certain thing and it jams really well, and now you've got to treat yourself like your own session musician, where you're like, I don't like the vibe of that.
Sure, sure. I get that. You have to like sort of tweak it in a way that's best for the situation rather than what you've right. It's almost. I know this wasn't really the point of what you're saying, but it's almost this sort of like for the greater good experience.
Well, totally, and I think that comes back to like the collaborative nature of stuff.
Sure.
Because like if you're just like, this is my part and this part defines me, but you're not like, I heard someone one time say, and it might have, I don't know who it was, but it was like I don't play in this band. I play this, like I'm not playing the band. I'm playing this song. I'm playing whatever part is necessary for this song. It is a greater good. You're like a bunch of pirates on a ship, like
Sure.
you're going to one thing, so you can't be pulling this way and pulling that way. You can't be steering this way and having the sails go the other way or whatever. I don't know. I'm not a sailor, but you know what I mean?
Right.
You have to agree that you're going some way, and if something isn't matching that vision, which is hard to define sometimes,
Sure.
then it has to be this thing of like, hey, listen, I like you as a person. You're really cool, but that part, I just don't think it fits. And in some other bands, it's like, there would be like a fight and someone would throw something because it's so personal.
Sure. It turns into, I think that's, and I guess I haven't really thought about I haven't really had this conversation with a lot of bands, but it's sort of this like fine line between the art and the business of it, right?
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion of the way that my brain works is, the band is a business, as much as like everyone in the punk scene will be like, like, no, it is, and it kind of has to be, at least from my perspective, because otherwise that's going to happen, right? These big fights of like, okay, I'm really passionate about, and that's great, I'm really passionate about the part that I'm playing. Well, cool, but this is an attack at you. This is, hey, maybe this doesn't fit here. Maybe we can fit that somewhere else, right? And maybe going one way or the other too far, right, is what's going to make it difficult.
Yeah, it's hard to get there too.
Totally, right.
And it's just like any relationship where it's like you almost have to make sure that you're speaking the same, language at some point. Sure. Because band people, we're so do a boop bop instead of a beedly boop,
Right.
And then you're like, wait, no, but when we wrote the song, it was a beedly boop, and now you're springing a boop bop beep on me, and like, or like, I don't know, play it less twangy, and you're like, what? Like,
yeah. It's funny because obviously as and the people watching this, right, if you're a musician in a band, you'll understand it's this like, for me, I'm the drummer, but the first practice that I had with the Writhers back from shutdown, quote unquote, right, we're writing this song and everyone else is telling me how to do my drum part, and I'm just sitting there out for like an hour based on what they're talking about. And it's hilarious, right? Because like, you guys aren't drummers, but I'm gonna take the idea and try and figure it out.
Yeah.
But it would be the same thing as me saying, "Hey, do this on the guitar." I can't play guitar. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, And if it changes, and I'm first to admit I totally do that, and right? But we have to be on the same page. Like, oh, okay, I get it now. I get what you were trying to do. I'm going to shut up about it because you know what you're talking about, you know, or vice versa. Hey, I still don't think it works, but you know.
Well, I mean, and sometimes, like, you know, it's nice to also have a space where you can try those things out. I mean, I'm sure every band does this, but, you know, B will, like, always be recording practices and stuff. And it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
okay, well, when we come back from this chorus, instead of doing, like, a broken down chorus, let's do just regular, you know what I mean? And then do that and then, like, fade out. And then you're like, in the moment, you're like, that, I don't know how that's going to work. That's not how we've been playing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to play the two back, and then you know you let your ear decide. And it's one of those things where it sucks when you play in a band and you can't even listen to the music that you play because you don't even, you know, at the end of the day, I feel like you should be making music that you yourself want to listen to, and the reason you're making that music is because you're looking for that one band that has that sound, but they don't, so you have to do it. You're like, oh crap, you know.
I guess I have to take on this duty now.
Yeah, what is that, like, the thing the villain always says, like, you know, you got to do it yourself or whatever, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Why do I have to do it? I don't know. I just watched something that they said that.
Why do I always have to do this? Like, you can't do it
I'm
right.
getting
It
the
was
thing
something,
of, like,
something like that.
it's
I know
hard to
what you're
find
talking
good
about.
help these days, but that's
Yeah,
not what
yeah,
it
yeah.
is.
That's not what
Like,
it is. But I know what you're talking about.
yeah, like 19 Western villain angry at, you know, his banditos for something.
Right, right. Um, so in 2020, I remember because I was there when some of this happened. You guys recorded, and we're all going down, which is I want to go back to earlier in the conversation. Very clearly, you're going down because you're not a good sailor. But
Yes. Oh,
I've been,
yeah.
I've been holding on to that joke for like the entire last like 15 minutes. Um, so tell me about that experience, recording those singles, putting them out. I don't know if you ended up keeping the bongos, but there were bongos in the studio, so things like that. How did it all go down?
Oh that was really cool. That was something we had those songs, and those were songs that we, you know, were jazzed up and wanted to play back on the self-titled
Okay.
back in 2017, and
Hmm.
we were at, you know, at some point, you know, with We're All Going Down, at some point, it has to be 5 years ago or something, I got kind of obsessed. It's really funny because, like, that Assassin's Creed game came out with the pirates,
Hmm.
and they'd be singing these sea shanties, and like I didn't even have the game, but I just saw commercials for it at one point, and something about it hit me, and I was like, oh, it's like work songs, and I had heard old blues stuff. I had, you know, been a Black Keys fan, and, you know, the Robert Johnson story is fun and cool because Satan and, like, whatever. Um, but at some point, we became kind of obsessed with this crossover between, you know, sailor work songs or work songs in general of the Americas or wherever, and then
Hmm.
also, like, that influence on, like, the blues.
Sure.
And, you know, could we do something again, like, where's the Billy? At least for us, at some point it was like, well, maybe the Billy in this case or in this song isn't 1980s neo rockabilly. Maybe in this case the Billy is, like, you know, Delta blues,
Right.
Mississippi hillbilly, you know, slide blues stuff. So we kind of started going down that road, and kind of doing, like, what would, you know, a harder band do, you know, like, if you, again, if you were to deconstruct the grilled cheese,
Mhm.
you know, and if you were just throwing, okay, you know, psychobilly is, you know, this and it's a that, it has to have these things in it, but you can get those things, like, it doesn't have to be sourdough, it could be, you know, it could be rye, or it doesn't have to be, you know, well, I don't know, cheddar, it could be Gouda, or, you know, like, those
Right.
things, you know, maybe you can get the Billy from that, or the twang can come from the slide blues instead, and, you know, the thumping bass in certain points when it goes do, that can be bongos, you know, going from speaker to speaker, and just get this, like, you know, give this sense of insanity. That's,
Sure.
you know, that was the Billy, and then how do you get, like, the insanity, you know?
Yeah.
How do you get the psycho part? So we ended up going to Nothing But a Nightmare, which you know the place. Awesome.
That 1K is the owner and one of the recorders there,
Yeah.
producers.
He's a proprietor and producer and so many things. I mean, he's great. He sang on stuff. There was parts where, you know, because that's his kind of forte, coming from the horror punk stuff, and you know, there were parts where there's a whole section now that we use with this, just like these background woes that never would have happened had he not, you know, thrown them in as an idea. So
Sure.
again, the collaboration, sometimes it's everybody in the room and sometimes it's people who are outside of the room, and it's one giant party. But no, we recorded with him, and then the idea was to record these songs, to do a single, A side and a B side. So we're all going down, and I Heard the Blackbird, and you know, and then have Renee from the Brains finish those off, have him, you know, mix and master those to get that, you know, that tight sound. Because in some stuff, I mean, with they're both it's a weird, we've talked about it before, but like the singles, like, so We're All Going Down is like a punk blues song, like a gothy punk blues song, I guess, if that exists.
Sure.
And then I Heard the Blackbird is our version of doing a ska psychobilly song.
Sure.
So if we were smart, we would have done one straightforward psychobilly song, and then the B side would have been the weird one. But we just did two weird ones. So
sure. Well, but I think that still goes back to what you're talking about, right? Like, it kind of sucks that we sometimes have to think that way, where it's like, well, shit, I should have done a more straightforward one to get everyone interested. Like, that's a marketing thing, and it's smart that you're thinking that way. However, it sucks because these are two styles that you wish other bands were doing, you know, and so you had to do it. Well,
yeah,
I'm going to do it, right?
And you're all jazzed about it, and then of course what happens is you go, okay, well, this session, these singles, will do these, but then the next one we'll do that, and we'll be smarter about it, or you know, whatever. And you know, they're fun, they're great. I don't think anyone, I mean, I think the saving grace, at least for I Heard the Blackbird, is that the chorus on that one is kind of what we would call the psychobilly boogie, the do 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 do,
Sure,
that kind of thing. So at least it has that. It's not full on just left field, wherever left is on this screen.
Right.
For me, it's
how did that? Well, it sounds like, you know, the you had said that, okay, so the next thing is going to be a little bit, you know, better marketed and thought out, and that, and we talked a little bit about this before as well. But the next set of releases has been the Quarantine 80s. Tell me about how that was the next move for you guys.
Yeah, that was like, oh my gosh, that was, I mean, whenever people see this, you know, and I'm sure they'll remember, everyone was doing like home recordings because none of us knew how it was going to work. And, you know, and there was like that little cute app or whatever it was, like Jamify or whatever, that made it seem real simple. And then just like anything with technology, it never is that simple.
Right.
It's just, you know, the idea was like, oh, we'll do this song, and then, you know, I'll do a whoa over here, and then my whoa will be here, and then my guitar will be here, and second guitar will be here, and then, you know, and so our idea was to do something quick and fast, and do a few times after some gigs, you know, you'd go to a place and be, you know, living where we live and playing where we play, you know, the goth and 80s, you know, the goth cholo thing is like real big, and so you go to a club and there's a bunch of goth people, and now we're all listening to like, you know, Lookout Weekend or something, or Biv Bev DeVoe, or and just going, you know, that's a cool song. What if we, you know, hit times 1.5 on YouTube and just sped it up really quick? Like, wouldn't that be cool? Or how could you play with that? So yeah, we decided to do Somebody's Watching Me, which I think is an obvious.
Sure.
It's an obvious one. And then, you know, I don't know if there's been psychobilly covers of that before. If not, there should have been, so that's why we did it. And then we also did I Ran from Flock of Seagulls.
Right.
And that was coming out as far as before, it was really early in the quarantine. It was right when everyone was releasing those videos. And the idea was, okay, we'll promote. I think, uh, I think, uh, I heard the Blackbird came out first, and then we were going to do promotion for that, and then We're All Going Down was coming out, and then the idea was, oh, we'll record these. We'll do it at home. It'll be super fast. It'll be super simple, and we can keep releasing these. As one is being promoted, we can be recording, and then just keep that momentum going.
Sure, sure.
Which is, I don't know how other bands are being so prolific, but it's just so insane.
Right. It's a hard thing to do. I've tried to organize, at least mentally organize on paper, like these are the ideas that we have. We can do this while this is happening. We could do that. And obviously life and time gets away, away from you. And it
It's
makes
true.
it really difficult. Like you said, I don't know how bands can do all the things that they're doing all the time sometimes,
Sometimes I feel like they must have to just like live in like a band house,
Right.
and then just do it or something. Or maybe sometimes, I mean, recording by yourself and doing that stuff, which we did for the last two, and we're going to be releasing another one that's not a cover. In some ways it's so, recording at Nothing But a Nightmare is great. Recording at Suicide King Records is great, and having that expertise. But sometimes it's really cool because concepts or things get left on the cutting room floor, and when you can just go slow and do one song, then then she can come in one day and go have a reference track of like, what if on the deep part you underlaid like a growl underneath it, or on this intro hit, like what if we layered like a cannonball going off in the background, which when you're relying on somebody else to do it, it's a please can we, and then it's like, okay, we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
And gosh, I don't know. I mean, we both sing in it now, so that one is hard too when you're emailing. When we were recording some of these songs, we weren't even in the same room together.
Right, right.
I mean, a lot of times we weren't even in the same room, so I was sending, mixes back to her, and she's emailing me back, and then we come back to the whole thing of like, what if that part was less twangy? And then you're like, what? And what we learned was, it's so crazy, the band stuff, like playing live is, the momentum cannot be understated. It's like, you come back from a show, you do that stuff, and then that gives you the momentum and the ganas or whatever to then a week later, when you do have to go into the booth, even if it's at home, and give it your all after working your day job or whatever, you can. But
sure.
During this time, again, I don't know how people were doing it, because you're inside all day, you're locked inside, and then now you go into a smaller room, like a hot stuffy closet, and then now you're supposed to try and capture what it would sound like if you were playing live.
Sure, sure.
Sometimes to a song that you've never played live, like I Ran or something.
Right. That's got to be. I never thought about that. That's got to be, make it difficult, right? I've had this conversation with like Robert, for example, right, where it's just sort of like he's talked about like not being in the persona, wanting to be in the persona to do certain things, and I can only imagine it's the same way, especially for doing vocals, right? I play drums, so all I do is like background yells and woes sometimes, right? But most of the time, I don't do any of that. But I can only imagine getting into the same place of like, I have to project in a certain way. I have to make it sound a certain way. There's a lot of layers that go into doing vocals, right? That I can only imagine being more difficult and stifled if you're like, I've never done this live. I don't know what this is supposed to feel like or sound like, right?
Yeah. And then, I mean, it's great. Technology is great. It's not everything, obviously, but it's great to be able to, there was some stuff, and now because of this, we've learned a lot, about it, and now B can send me multiple versions of something like like you're talking about, like, I'll just do background woes or whatever. But even that stuff gets crazy because, do you woe and do you croak at the end of like whoa, or do you like oh, like these are all, and struggling with those things of like being a creative where you're like, well, sometimes it's so hard to think of like right and wrong, and sometimes
Right.
these decisions, they're not, they just come back, it comes back to serving the song. It's not right
Mhm.
or wrong, it's just a stylistic choice, and at some point you have to just follow that path, or else you paralysis by analysis or whatever, right?
Sure, sure. You have too many things going on, too many thoughts about it. You've added way too many. Like, what did I just do? Right.
Yeah.
Where did the
You,
actual song go?
you fall down that thing of like, well, which tote bag defines me when you're going to the grocery store? You know, like
Sure, sure.
which woe defines me? And then you're like, the other thing that I love to get into the philosophical stuff of like recording, because some different things and ideas have been like, how do you get that thing where, live you're in a room, somebody says something and maybe it's a cover of a song or something, and so your brain as a listener, you're already filling things in. And
Hmm.
so when the really crazy part comes on, maybe someone who's like not even into that song, they just hear something that's pretty straightforward and wow,
Sure.
they're loud or whatever. That part was loud. But you as a listener, you fill so much stuff in, and so then when you go to record, everything is just this.
Hmm.
And how do you get that vibe? And so sometimes if Brittany or something has like a crazy drum part, the answer isn't to play harder, because again, you're set at these levels. You can't play super hard here and then, now your level's gonna be all fucked up. So sometimes what you do is, the idea is just, strumming strings, and she'll do it. I won't even do it.
Hmm.
And she's treating other things that aren't percussion as percussion, or a shaker going into something, or non-drum things to fulfill this drum part.
Sure, sure. If I understand you correctly, we're talking about, a band. I think, and again, this may be a conversation that we've had. I'm sure it's a conversation I've had with other people, is how much do you add to a recording and how much of that is supposed to be like a live show and how much of
Yeah.
it's different. I'm of the opinion, and this typically doesn't happen in the Writhers just because of the way that Robert wants us to sound, right? But I'm of the opinion that in studio, you add as much shit as you possibly can because that is completely separate than a live show, right? A
Yeah.
live show to me, on the more punk side of things, is like I'm gonna play it with power. I'm gonna play that with fucking ganas, right? You're gonna play that
Yeah.
with power. You're gonna play it with like maybe you're gonna get faster at this part, or you're gonna go slow down on this part, right? But in the studio, that's different. Okay, the energy is maybe not there, but okay, well, we can add 3 guitars, we can add keyboards, we can add these tracks in the background that aren't going to be there live because it's its own entity, right? Separate from a live show. And I think what you're talking about is, if B can't add this crazy drum fill because it's going to go over the guitar or the vocals in some way, or it's not going to work, then she has to be willing, or you would have to be willing to change something on your side, right, to dial it back a little bit and save that for the live show. Okay, there's the energy, but we're going to kind of change the energy on the studio recording, right?
Totally. And the live thing is crazy, because I mean that's where it comes with the, we're working on kind of like newer stuff, and
Yeah.
how the ending of this song, is this one of your songs where, for instance, is it going to be one of those songs where you stretch out the middle eight or whatever and you introduce the band members or something, or
Mm-hmm.
you thank the promoter? I mean, because you're not going to do that when you record.
Right.
That's going to be a little blip. But how do you make those moments? And then when you're writing at the same time, do you write those in, or different things? So yeah, the two things are completely separate, and they should be. I know comedians talk about, you know yeah, this person, it's like there are comedians out there that can go on and they don't almost have anything, they don't have anything memorized. They
Hmm.
just do crowd work.
Sure, sure.
And some great bands do that. I mean, I've seen some bands, do what, I'm like, how long were sets? Like 30 minutes, a 30-minute set, and do like 20 songs.
Right, right.
But I've seen some real memorable bands do 6 songs.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of talent in both, but as far as someone who's like, I drew a short straw, so I kind of have to be a front man a little bit. How do you do that, and then how do you make that a memorable night for people and create those moments for people that, you know whatever. I mean, we've done that before. We've done the 20 songs and whatever. we've sped up all our stuff. How do we fit? We really want to play this song in here,
Right.
and it's crazy. It's a tug of war, I guess.
Totally. We're about 50 minutes now, but what I was gonna say was, you had mentioned, I guess, last couple questions, you had mentioned the next stuff that you're working on. Tell me a little bit about that. Is that something that you're hoping to have finished soon and start marketing? Is that something you guys are just barely starting?
Yeah, so we have one, and we started recording it around the same time as the what do we call it, the Quarantine 80s
Okay.
collection, and it's called Midnight Things.
Mhm.
And in a weird way, in our brains, we have a good friends, Dead at Midnight.
Mhm.
So in an homage to kind of, Z Billy's writing style, he's a guy who can. We've talked about this before, where like he can have one of those lines like the save a horse, ride a cowboy, and he's just a genius where he'll like do the save a horse, save a horse, save a horse, and by the time it comes, you're just like waiting for him to be like, and ride a cowboy, like just a master of it.
Yeah.
So doing so much with not so little, but harnessing that stuff. So we kind of wrote it as a writing exercise and an homage. We spell Midnight Things the same way they spell it, MIDNITE. Yeah, and that one is kind of ironically, we were listening to some really old Reverend Horton Heat, and like we were listening and we were like, does he have like Spanish guitar on every time he does like the guy does like a snare hit or something? And so we just kind of got obsessed with like, those things are really subtle in the recording, but what if they weren't, and what if it was more kind of darker psychobilly and stuff? So we have that one. That one is literally in the mixing phase right now. Like,
Cool.
Yeah, I've been lagging on it super bad, but going over, and we bought new computers to like master stuff because we were blowing up our old ones. So yeah, we had done our static mix, and we have to just go back and set levels for that, and that should be done. And we're trying to do, I think maybe even a B-side for that would be a song called Firing Line, which is a song that's kind of, if psychobilly or if ska is, you're the drummer, you have to tell me. If ska is like it's like on the right? So, and I think like rock.
It all depends on the type of ska we're talking about.
Sure. I'm thinking like the standard, like
it's the up, right? It's on the up note.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think around the same time we were doing, I Heard the Blackbird, which was our ska thing, and we were doing, the upstrokes. We were doing a different one on the kind of Django Reinhardt kind of gypsy stuff, where it's a duka-taka,
Sure.
So we kind of went that way. So we're trying to make that one a more in line with something kind of gypsy, folk, punk, goddamn gallows type.
Sure.
Weird, kooky shit. Throw in crazy, weird breakdowns and stuff.
Cool.
So we're hoping that will be the B side to it, maybe, or just release those as singles.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, that sounds fun. I can't wait to hear them. The other thing I wanted to share, if I mean, I've already posted about it, so anyone who's not following me can follow me on Instagram. But we're playing a show together, September 29th.
Yes.
In San it seems like that's going to be your guys' first show back, if everything doesn't get shut down or anything before then.
Yeah, but that's the first show back, and it'll be in our little hometown. So I guess we'll be hosting you guys.
Yeah. I'm touring band sandwiching it, so we're playing before you guys, so you got to bring the crowd.
Oh shit. Okay, all right.
just the warning.
I know that there was a few different venues that looking at. That one is the one that I've definitely been in downtown. I can like walk there, and they'll have like lowrider nights there.
Nice, nice.
So
I've
it
seen
should be an interesting
their
mix.
flyers. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. Well, with that being said, I did want to thank you for being on here. It's been awesome, and you and I can
Of course.
we could talk all the fucking time, and it, I'll never get bored. But
You're
obviously,
a true musician, sir. I love it. We can talk about concepts of music. I dig it.
yeah, totally. It's the abstract sort of piece, right? Where can people find your music? Where can they find out news and things like that for Six Silver Bullets?
Yeah, we have I mean if you go to sixsilverbullets.com, you'll be directed to our site. Obviously, Instagram at Six Silver Bullets, Facebook Six Silver Bullets, we're on Bandcamp, all that stuff. And yeah, we'll post all our stuff there, and I guess our first show back will be with you on the 29th of September.
Woo! So if you're in the Orange County area or in Southern California and down to make the trip, come out to Next Round Bar September 29th. You can catch Six Silver Bullets, The Right End, Wake the Dead. It's going to be awesome. Thanks for being on. I have been your host, Rikk Retreats. This has been Ripley from Six Silver Bullets. You've been watching the Pumpkin Patch on HPUSA TV. Like, subscribe, comment, share, all that shit. I will see you guys next time.